because we're about to transition over to the after show.
Oh my goodness, what a day, what a day. It is not often that you get to see something like this where if you ask any analyst out there and what they were telling you, and I don't care, you're gonna find like a sliver, one person here or there, someone who happened to get it right, saying, if we have a super hot number, this market's gonna tank, this market's gonna tank. Oh, I did hit save on that, but it doesn't look like it changed it. Okay. I don't know. I changed those. I did what Brendan told me to do, but it doesn't look like it wants to change it right now. So that's on me. We'll have to wing it. That graphic is going to be wrong. We got to talk about the bounce first. That's really what it's all about here today. You had that crazy, crazy non-farms payroll number, basically a double, came out of nowhere. You can look at some ancillary things like what was the wage growth, maybe not as big as expected. That could explain the rally. But the market was in a tank. It was reacting how you would have expected with a number like this, and it was tank city off that number at 830. We made some lower lows, and then suddenly it was catching a bid. Still felt like maybe it's going to be a tank, and then at that open, when you're at still a resistance level, it pulled back, and that was the bamboozlement. Like it pulled back off the open on the NASDAQ, and then you had the rip your face off rally. Once again, the buy the dip crowd is completely and utterly undefeated today, OB. Absolutely undefeated. I don't know how many times we have to see this before. Like this was a day where I was like, you know, you look for that rebound play sometimes, and it's like, that's the play. You know, it goes down, you're looking for that rebound. This was one where I was initially just thinking, it's not gonna bounce. Like we're gonna get this, we'll actually have a continuation, look for some short to pop zones, and it was anything but that. Your best case scenario today was to just get out of the way of the shorts. If you found a place to flip long, a couple of places, fantastic. We'll talk about that in the review here. Ignore that because we're not doing that rundown. I'm trying to this is the thing that Brendan sent me. I'm hitting save, and it's not really changing the topic. So I want to talk about the market bounce first. We should probably just get rid of that, unless I can change it.
I'll type. Okay.
Topics are over here, Ramin. You know what's funny? Somebody said we should get Ramin should be on the show. No, you're not getting away with this. No, you're not. You're gonna have to stand here and look at the topics and be on camera. This is Ramin, everybody. This is the person who is so wonderfully kind to bring me pastries, and I'm gonna have my hands off. You do whatever you need to do there. Bring me pastries when I'm hungry on the show. Do a fantastic job with Fabian. The difference between Fabian and Ramin, because they both work just as hard, is that Fabian doesn't share when he has a treat, and Ramin does, right? So that means that Ramin is up here, and that means that Fabian is, like I've said, it's somewhere down there. But like I said, we're talking about that crazy bounce. Sometimes the best thing you can do is get out of the way. Oh my goodness, this is we're all over the place here. But sometimes the best that you can do is get out of the way. And I think that's something that it was pretty obvious early on at about like 10 o'clock. Like right around here, like after 10 o'clock when you broke this high, I think this is exactly the moment when on that bounce, if you were shorting, you should have been out. And if you were not out here, I'm talking about the Qs, if you were not out here, then you should have been at least sitting it out until you got to the top, right? Like if you're short thesis, you're short, you're gonna get out there. And if you're short from down here, you're gonna lose, and that's fine. It's going to happen to you. It's happened to everybody. But if you were trying to short in that bounce from about 357 up to 359-ish, you know, that was way too early. You had to wait for it to get to the top to at least take a shot. And then when it consolidated, broke this high here, just you had no business shorting anything once we were clearing out 360 on the Qs. No business whatsoever until you found some kind of a resistance level. This is where I finally started joining longs myself. So with that, I want to jump right into, I don't know if we have do we actually have it now? Oh, not yet. We're still working on it. We're going to talk with Obi about one very specific type of thing when it comes to working your trade. But I'm just going to jump in to the first one here, and that's going to be Rivian. If we're gonna review trades, the first one I wanted to talk about after that bounce was going to be Rivian, and the reason is because it was hands down one of the nastiest downward days I've ever seen. So you're right to have a short bias on Rivian today, to a certain extent. You then had a bad number, which again, it's a good number, but really it's bad for what everyone's talking about, and that's the Fed next month. So we were flushing into the downside. Even when it bounced at the open, it was screaming into the biggest level out there that was available, which was 18. And it was an absolute battle at the $18 level. It was a war. Short, short, short. It even gave you the wins. It was the right area to have looked for the trade. Sometimes you do the right thing at the right level, you put the trade on, and you're just wrong. If you're a baseball player, like I played baseball, this is no different from getting your pitch, seeing it right, putting on a good swing, hitting an absolute rocket, and it's directly at the shortstop, and he doesn't even have to move, and he just sits there and he catches it. You rocked it. You did what you were supposed to do, and you just happened to make it out. To me, if you shorted the 18 level, I did what I wanted to do. It just never followed through and eventually stopped out. But from that point, once it cleared out the 18 level with this candle, it was just a long is what it was, like everything else. And we're actually going to close, holding some of those highs up at 19, which is just incredibly. I mean, the word, like there's not words to describe this. If you had told me yesterday that Rivian was going to be at 19, I'd have said that's absolute nonsense. Yeah, that's still not right, that topic board, but. We're going to get to meta in a quick second here because, we're 7 minutes in. Obi, I don't know, you didn't trade Rivian.
No.
But, like, the overall consensus on the floor at the end of the day, I talked to a couple people. It was, wow, everybody was looking for the SSR bounce play on Rivian. It worked yesterday. People made money doing the SSR bounce play on Rivian. But my goodness, if you were just short. Like, what's your take on that? Because what I told one trader was, if your style of trade is SSR bounce play is a very good trade for me, then yesterday on Rivian, it was like the best opportunity for that trade. It was just down 20-something%. It had several good bounces of like 19 to 20 into 2040, I think happened one yesterday, and there was also a 19 bounce to like 1930.
Right.
It bounced off 18 to 1830. Like there were 3 that worked. But you missed out on dollars to the other side. My advice was do what you do and don't worry about the other side of the trade if that's not your thing. But what was your take? Because I don't know if you traded that, but you had to have been looking at it.
No, I did. I think I did take the long off the 19 hold. But again, it was on TMS. We were trying to put in those reps to try to take real trades, and I saw that 19 was holding. And yeah, I think it pretty much did give into that the mechanics of the SSR, because the 19 wouldn't follow through on the downside, and then you start getting a little bit of a churn. So all I was looking for was that 20 to 30 pennies of a pop, because I also understood how heavy the selling was. But you know what? I agree. I 100% agree with what Neil is saying here, as to like you gotta stick with what you're working on, what is working for you. But yeah, sure, you can sit there and be like, the short was great. The short gave you so many more points. Sure, make a strategy for that. Right? If you have a strategy, like you can run both sides of that strategy. You can use that reason to get long on the SSR for short covers. Right? You can I say this all the time, reasons to buy are reasons to buy, and reasons to sell are reasons to sell, regardless of whether you're long or short.
Yes.
So you can be using those mechanics to your advantage, whether you're taking the long or you're already short. Say, for example, you take pre-market low breaks. Right? So if you were fast enough to take that pre-market low break, or you took an even dollar, right? You take the 20 back through, and you're like, okay, 20. I haven't really looked left, but right here, take a look at that. I didn't even have to look that far back, right? So you can see that 20 was looking left is the first level that you see that acted as a pretty strong support after that flush. So if you're looking at a level to break, that 20 short would have been nice, and the fact that you broke that early on in the day and continue to sell off, I think that was a great reason to get short in and around that 20.
Really? Oh my
Consolidation on the 19th, sure, reasons to buy, reasons to get long, but you can see that the failure to follow through of that consolidation kind of happens, and those sellers really come back in. We talked about that 1930. So I think it's fair to say, Neil, that you can be exercising on both sides of that trade.
Sorry?
But whatever is working for you, whatever you have structured, and whatever you have planned out is probably going to work best for you, right? I think I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
So basically, the thing I like, and first of all, thank you to Katrine who just hooked this up. So
Awesome.
She brought candy. See, oh, that's so sweet. See, notice who's moving up in the ranks around here, and like who doesn't actually provide us with anything. No, I'm joking around, but thank you much for that. One of the things that you said that I want to not to harp on, but go back to, is use your entry levels or decision-making points to execute the other side of the trade. Like if you're someone that's just looking to play the bounces, then what informs you where to play the bounce, if you happen to be in the short, gives you an area to get out. And that leads me to like a number one thing that I wanted to talk about today, which was like when you talk about what a trade is, right? Like a trade is a reason to look at something. So like you pick the stock you're going to look at. So like if it happened to be Rivian, it's Rivian. Does it have a catalyst? Okay, it's convertible bond offering or whatever it happens to be, and it's already down 10% or whatever it might be. So you have a reason to be looking at the stock. From there, you're looking for a set of conditions to enter the trade. In this particular case, if you're short, yesterday it could have just been breaking $20 even. If you're looking for longs, it's once it hits 10%, find an obvious support level and look for a bounce, right? So that's another thing. But you have to find places as a trader to make a decision. There are areas to make a decision, and there are areas to sit and watch. And the first thing you do once you decide you're trading the stock is figure out what those are. If you can figure out what that is, that can be the first step. You don't always have to execute right off of it, but if you can just say that, well, 20 was the place where I think it's going to accelerate one direction or the other, that's a start. And if you think that 19 is going to be a bounce, well, you can do two things with that decision. It can be an exit short, it can be an enter long, it can be a wait until it moves away from that price if you want to short the pop. Like if you at 19, it was perfect for every possible decision. It was a bounce point yesterday. It was a wait to short the pop after it bounces off 19. It was a take a profit short off of 20. Like if you were short 20 yesterday, or better example, long an 18 break today, if you were just panicking out in the first 10 to 20 cents, yes, you made money on the trade, but you were essentially getting out as it was starting to work. And that doesn't make any sense. It really, think about that for a second. Why would you be getting the bulk of your exits on a trade just as the trade is starting to work? And the crazy thing about that is it's going to make you money when you do it. But you're just going to be leaving money on the table. Sometimes when you're really right, you need to find a way to go from decision-making point to decision-making point to decision-making point. It's not easy. Nobody gets that perfectly. Nobody gets it perfectly. But you have to start somewhere. And going back into that today for Rivian, 18 was a decision-making point.
Yes.
Now, I got out when it was wrong, but once it broke away on that long, the next one was find a way to hold it and make another decision at about 18.50. And then that could have been to take some out, look for the dip buy, find a higher low, whatever it happens to be, work on those decision points. I know you might have some charts up, so I wanted to get your thoughts on Microsoft. I see Jack Mack in the chat there. Microsoft chip could cut Nvidia GPU costs. That's out of the news. Microsoft is actually a name that we wanted to talk about because there's news on Nvidia just now. But Microsoft was one where you had the right. Well, we both had decision points on it, and the ability to hold past it would have been a really positive thing for either one of us. But in that situation, I know I didn't make the right decisions. I got in. I didn't make the right decision after I was in. But certainly go over the Microsoft levels. We'll talk some meta as well. But it's all about making the right decision. Nvidia is just a rocket ship. We'll get to that news in a second.
Yeah, so I think that's great about that decision-making point. So let's talk about some of the points at which we made decisions and why on Softy today. Again, we had that 315 marked. Why is that? That's been a level from before. That definitely was a decision-making point. And we had longs, not on Softy, but the Qs observing that the 315s were holding on softy as well, that was definitely a decision-making point, right? You come back up, you wipe the whole move. 320s and 321s were definitely decision-making point. That 320 kind of yesterday's high, pre-market high consolidation, and the end-of-day high from earlier this week. We also see that this area, this give or take a point, that 321 is a little better with this one, but that 321, 320 area, definitely a point to make a decision, as when you kind of rip right through it and hold this level, you blast to the upside. Now, I was looking at that 322 because I was like, I'm going to give it some room as it kind of pops up and look for that lower high. I chased into a bit of a short there, and we got stopped out. That was definitely an area to make a decision. And but the decision was wrong, clearly. But we flipped the script, and when it was holding that 322, we flipped to the long, and we gave it into 324 halves. But lo and behold, we go all the way to 327, which is just a level-to-level move. If you ask me, if the buying pressure is there, then definitely the levels will have a strong potential to come into play. And just looking left here, take a look at this. We talked about that 327 area kind of being the place where sellers kind of came in hot, retested, and then kind of started to trail all the way back down into this 310 area here on softy. So I think we got a level-to-level move there, and definitely some points to make decisions right there at the 321, the 315 for sure, and also that 327 there, Neil.
I mean, the key is if you're not cutting a short at a key price level like that, like you're doing yourself a disservice. You don't always have to go long on that level of break, but you don't want to get deer in headlights at a key making decision point. And the funny thing about them is they're usually pretty obvious, right? Just a quick thing here, because there was the news like Microsoft and Nvidia teaming up on a chip, which could reduce some costs.
This just came out?
Yeah, it just came out.
Huh.
Now, Nvidia, I'm just looking at Nvidia's price action on this. I mean, it dipped going into the close. It's still, it's still actually looking a little bit weak, so it's not really moving positively off of this. Maybe bouncing a little bit
We may or may not have priced in some of the buy during the day.
Well, that's sort of the problem. Like, even if it's positive news, like look at Microsoft here. Yeah, Microsoft maybe a little bit more positive in the aftermarket here. Not really moving. It's not breaking out, but you gotta remember where these things have come from today. So, it's one thing if we had held some of these lows, like if we had a down day and held those lows from 8:30, and then positive news came on one of these two, they'd probably have a decent chance of making a flying out or doing something a little more exciting to that upside. That's not the case. I mean, we're closing at highs, monster week. Weekends coming in. I don't know if people are eager to buy or rip your face off, even if there happens to be some kind of news there. Now, the other thing I wanted to get to for our Trader Talk is about, so everyone always talks about A+ setups or AAA, or this is my 10 out of 10 trade, or this is the trade I have the most conviction in, and this is the one I want to risk my entire shutdown on. Like all of these things that you hear traders say. Now, in complete hindsight, hindsight's going to be 2020, I would wager to say that Meta long at 300 was that this morning.
Oh yeah.
Now this morning,
oh yeah.
And the reason for this is a little bit obvious if you guys have been following along. It's like, first of all, what makes a trade like that a 10 out of 10, or your perfect setup? And the reason for it starts with the multiple lines of sort of say confluence, right? So we describe what a liquidity grab is and what it means. So here are the things that lined up for me with Meta. And admittedly, this isn't the stock I went long, and I went long in Palantir. It was an easier trade, but this was a better one. So that 50-period liquidity grab at 300, accumulation buyer underneath 300, it's been going on for 1 month now. That's part one. Part two, big liquidity grab underneath 300 that resolved in it can't go more than 50 cents underneath 300 the last 3 days.
That's huge.
That's part two. Part three would be when we have that crazy job number, you have a flush at the open, which bounces exactly off that same level for the last 3 days. That is 3 reasons that you absolutely love the long from here. Now, this is all, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to ask you this question. Now, My answer to this is, the only thing I want to do is ask myself why I didn't like every long until it got to $315. Like, that's the first starting point for me, because you don't have to have the 300. But if it's a AAA play, then you should like it. You should like it at great prices. You should like it at every entry price. But what was your feeling on this? Because I didn't have it this morning, and I don't really have an excuse for it. I was thinking short. That's the reason. It's not an excuse. It's the reason. But if you were looking for the long, and I mean, candidly, I know you traded the futures long. You liked the long today, and you were in at the bottom. But you didn't trade Meta. So like, that's my question. Like, you love Meta, and you're the one that talked about it. So you let me know. What's the deal with Meta? Where could we have done better with this? Was it really a AAA for you? I can say in hindsight, I think it was. But did you think this morning that Meta 300 was worth that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. AAA, this is I'd give it a quintuple A if I could. This is definitely an AA plus trade. If you have somebody, let's call it a player. A player is defending this level for multiple days, and like you said, that lick grab kind of reinforces it. And today you get that number, and then you see that liquidity show up again and stop that move from really pushing lower as the market pushes. What was it? 200 points to the downside, right? Almost 300.
It was nasty.
From 14.9s all the way almost testing for, I think 14.660 was kind of that consolidation low area. But Meta does not want to break 300 or 299.50. We saw that happen, and yeah, definitely a great trade. But okay, let's take a quick look and see where we could have potentially done better, right? So we had the idea. To take longs on the NQs. So I was observing Softy, I was observing Amazon, I was observing Apple as well, and a lot of them were holding those levels. And of course, we talked about Meta as well. So I used that as indicators for me to get long on the Qs, on the TQs. Retrospect, yes. If there was one play that we could have, should have been in today, it was Meta. We talked about it in the pre-market, but okay, how can we structure this so that next time we don't miss out on such an opportunity? We talked about having a plan and having a structure for the trade. So immediately, something that you pointed out stands out to me is this significant hold all week, right? All week and all of last week as well. This level has held both support and resistance, and on an economic number, you can't even break that level. So right away, that is the first step to me to be like, okay, I want to be involved in this name. And then you see that consolidation out the open. Take it easy. You see that consolidation out the open, that 301 holds as well. So I think that 301, I think Sharif has talked about it as well. You had this consolidation which kept on giving you that 300 to 301, 300 to 301, 300 to 301. And if we see this consolidation off of a 299 half hold above that 301, I think that's even more reason to start looking at the long. And I think a lot of people did and were looking for those longs, maybe not on Meta, but other names as well. But Meta, we saw that how well that 300 holds. So if the market has potential to go, I think Meta would definitely be one of those levels. But you were talking about decision points. So I think that 301 area right here, 301.50 is a decision point. But even more than that, this right here, this 303, and where the selling came in right here, this 304, 305 area, take pre-market highs. We'll make it easy. Pre-market highs and yesterday's highs kind of confluence a little bit there in and around that 305, 306. That's also, I think, a decision-making point. And you can see how rapidly the price action pushes through these levels, not really consolidating anymore, finds consolidation actually above kind of these, where is Monday right here? So Monday, Tuesday, so weekly highs. Take a look at that, Neil. 307, we talked about this level as well. Another decision-making point right there at that 307. So it's only giving you places to get long on those holds, and the decision-making points are just stacked back to back and telling you, okay, now we're holding this key level, now we're holding a weekly high, now we're holding this high, right? And then we talked about that 310 as well. If you take a look a little further left, that 310 that 310, that 312, we saw that every time we popped up into close to this 310, we sold off back in towards that 300. So the fact that 310 held, and then you also have another consolidation right on top of that 310, the break of that consolidation, I think, is also another decision-making point, and then that 315 comes in, putting the cherry on top of the move. So I think there's a lot of decision-making points, a lot better that we can do. If we ever see something like this, Neil, trust me, we are not going to be missing that.
Yeah, I think sometimes you take the low-hanging fruit when you're trading, but oftentimes that
risk
can lead
it for the biscuit.
No, risk it for the biscuit. You can miss out on what should have been a better play. Like I'll admit, I'm guilty of looking for longs. It was Roblox and Palantir, and Roblox was something that I already liked the level and I knew where it was at. It's like that $30 level was really cheap and easy to just play off that. And the same thing with Palantir at 16. Like when the market just started going, I was like, let's just revert back to what I know I really liked yesterday, because those breakout points are going to be easy trades for me, instead of maybe digging in and sort of figuring out some new ones when I was thinking big cap tech was going to go down. It was very difficult to make that reverse, but you got to put in the work to do it. A couple of questions in the chat before we get into I want to get some roll call in there. We only got a couple of minutes. I keep forgetting that there's a countdown on this thing, and we're supposed to actually adhere to this, so oh my goodness, like 3.5 minutes, like what the heck? So a couple of things in the chat. Did Meta save the market? Or did the market save Meta? I don't think, if you look at the breadth of this move, everything but BlackBerry, then obviously you can't really put it on any one stock. Catching that bottom, everything made a good bottom, and it was a confluence of strength everywhere. I don't think you can really say one or the other there. It's very difficult to ever have a situation. Like sometimes, I've seen days where Apple carries it. I've seen days where Tesla has carried the market. That news that came out, the partnership, Nvidia, Microsoft news, for a brief moment AMD was looking relatively weak, but that's sort of rebounding now. So in the aftermarket, that did sell off on that news, but like you're talking about like 30, 40 cents and not a heck of a lot of anything. Darwin, I am going to absolutely milk this. BlackBerry was down today for a long time. I think it's pretty hilarious. When you see it, like a day like today, everything caught a bid, right? Like if you didn't catch a bid today, that's not a bad thing to look at over the weekend. If you're a bear, like if you're a bear and you just really want to short things on Monday, just have a look-see at some of the things that were crap today, and they're probably a safe bet to go into those shorts. I want to give a little bit of a roll call. Darwin, we love you. Taylor Swift and the Jays saved the market. Taylor Swift, maybe. The Jays didn't save a damn thing except for some money out of my pocket for not having to pay for playoff tickets. That's the only thing that got saved. Thank you for bringing that up. That's very nice. Now I'm reminded of that going into the weekend. Weekend for crypto. Can 28,000 hold? Every time Bitcoin gets to 28,000, last little bit. I don't have the chart up with me, but we only have 2 minutes. But if you've seen it, you kind of know what I'm talking about. Like it just doesn't seem to want to go there. So that's obvious. Hey, what's up, Natalia? Seen you in the chat a lot. You're here. We love you. Chill vibe. What's up with them bills? Don't worry about them bills. They're going to London. They're going to handle business. They're going to win, let's call it 38-17. They're going to sack Lawrence like 7 times. Von Miller's going to come back and be an absolute beast. I'm also a homer, so don't actually make any betting decisions based on that. Shout out to Matt Carnes. Yo, yo, yo. What's up to you, brother? We love you. Bristol in the chat. Mr. Long Shots. Love the name. Juan Padilla we got in the chat. Lava News. We see you there. Chimps, what up? Carlos Alberto, what up? I know you're there, Bears versus Bulls. We got to save you for last. I mean, you have no idea, for everyone out here.
Putting in work, for sure.
For everyone, we got 1 minute to go. Bears versus Bulls, you know you're an absolute champion. Like, the amount of work that gets put in behind the scenes that you guys don't see in the chat, reminding us of certain things and keeping us on point and making sure we don't miss super chats and moderating the chat to keep things clean, answering questions. If we don't answer a question correctly and someone's asking for a clarification, then you're all over it. We could not do this without you. When we say you're the best moderator on YouTube, we say it because it's just true. And if you can find a better one, then you're just a liar as far as I'm concerned. So that's how, I say things like that because it's just true every single time. We love you. You're absolute best. Ponzi, Fonzie, fine, I'll say your name. I say your name every day, Ponzi. Every day. It's all good. We love you, brother. Tammy as well, Chimps. I can't say everybody, Matt Booth. Thank you, everybody. It's been a big blast. This is where we're supposed to say Friday, and I ask you what you're doing for the weekend.
Yes.
What's up?
Nothing too much. I didn't want to go fishing, but it seems like that the weather is not going to stay with us. So It's probably going to be just reviewing this week. This week's been pretty hot. Nice.
Keep going.
So yeah, some reviews on the week. Definitely gotta dissect this meta. This is the first time I'm seeing a large cap kind of behave this way. We talked about level defense, so some serious defense on the large cap. And I think somebody in the chat also mentioned that Meta is coming out with those smart glasses. I was checking them out. Could be potential revolutionary technology, kind of putting this stuff out of business. So
Never.
You know. Oh, you say never, but that's what people said about pagers. That's what people said about a lot of things. And I think the phone technology, yeah, sure, it's great, but it's clunky. It's like it's clunky. It's clunky tech. And yeah, maybe I'm still going to be waiting for Neuralink, but maybe those glasses will be the next best thing.
You can get hooked up to Neuralink all you want.
Oh, trust me. I will be.
Hell no.
I'm going to have algos. I'm going to have algos running the algos. Hopefully, we'll see.
Nope.
We'll see. We'll see.
No, so here's the thing. Like, I actually looked at the applications of the technology in terms of what it could do for people to sort of restore movement in certain places.
That's the real benefit.
As someone, like, I'm not going to get into it too much. As someone who actually, I have nerve damage somewhere that it's, whatever, I have nerve damage, like, right here. I don't have any feeling in my mouth right here. It's a pain in the butt. And so, like, that's a very small thing. And for people that have, like, if you can't walk, you can't feel your arm, you can't move this, like, that is going to revolutionize the world.
Yes.
But you're still not connecting me to the ether and Skynet and thinking that's going to happen. I've read way too many science fiction novels, so you're not going to catch me with that. But I hope the weather clears up so that you can go fishing because you've earned it. Thank you very much for not just doing the full day filling in for Sean, but for joining me here, doing fantastic analysis. I love the way that you analyze charts. That's one of the reasons it's a pleasure doing this with you. To everybody out here, we got the best community, you're damn right, Bears versus Bulls. Fantastic, Mr. Westermeyer. You've been looking at restaurants on TripAdvisor. You can't wait to buy me dinner. I am holding you to that. There's lots of good ones. I can make some suggestions too. But it's been an absolute blast. For everybody in our Trader TV Live family, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to see you next week where it's going to be just as wild. Can't wait.
Oh boy, can't wait.